Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. How are you all doing? Have you drank too much, ate too much food, watched too much bad TV? Whatever you've been doing throughout the holiday season, it's time to get up, dust yourself down and prepare for not only another new year, but a new decade too. And one of the subjects I'm fascinated by about exploring on this Daily Tech Podcast is how technology is rapidly becoming almost invisible, while also making our lives easier. Just like the cars that many people drive out there, they no longer need to know what goes on under the hood. And I was also reminded of this recently when I discovered a company called Unqork. But Unqork is actually spelled Unqork, and essentially they're a no-code application platform that is helping large enterprises build complex custom software, but faster with higher quality and lower cost than conventional approaches. And as you all know, anything that involves unconventional approaches, thinking differently and leveraging technology to make a difference is probably the easiest way of appearing on my tech radar or setting off my tech spidey sensors. So today I invited the CEO of Unqork on the podcast to learn more about this industry pioneer, a no-code application development platform that is enabling enterprises, companies and brands to bring complex regulated products to market. Here's the killer: without a single line of code. And Gary is not only the CEO of Unqork, he's also a financial technology veteran with decades of experience and holds 8 patents. He was the youngest ever MD at Citigroup and is a nationally recognised thought leader, having been featured in well-known publications such as the Wall Street Journal, Fortune, Forbes and the Financial Times. So it sounds like he's been incredibly busy. And before that, Gary was also the Executive Vice President and Global CIO for MetLife, overseeing technology across 47 countries, managing a $1.2 billion budget. If having those kind of purse strings doesn't make you a little bit envious, wait till you hear about the rest that Gary's going to talk about today. And we'll also touch on how he spent his career helping top financial institutions and bringing transformative solutions to market. Sounds like he's got quite a story, so buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way back to the US so we can speak with Gary, CEO of Unqork. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. And thank you, Neil, for having me on the show. It's a pleasure being here and talking to you. My name is Gary Hoberman. I am the CEO founder for Unqork. I spent the last 25 years in Fortune 50 companies leading technology groups up to 10,000 people in 47 countries. And at Unqork, we invented a brand new way to create software without ever thinking about code, writing code again, or even generating code.
Now, when I was reading about you, a no-code application development platform that actually enables brands to bring complex, regulated products to market without writing a single line of code immediately put you on my radar. But can you set the scene and tell me a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're solving with Unqork?
Sure. And I want to start with, I would describe myself as a hacker by background. I was programming since 5th grade in punch card machines and my dad's publishing business and winning Fortran awards. And I believe, creating programs and writing code is magical in many ways. It can create new things out of nothing, which is incredible. And throughout my life as an enterprise software, I basically tried to deliver for my business any way I can the value they were trying to deliver for their customers and their shareholders. And it's all about solving problems through code, solving problems through software, or even deploying software. And what I kept seeing throughout the 25 years I worked on Wall Street as a Fortune 50 CIO, I kept seeing that no matter how much more we were spending, there was no value coming out. And the reality is that the talented developers, engineers out there, I don't believe there's a shortage, but there's definitely a talented group of developers, engineers. But really what they're focusing their time on is moving buttons around a screen. and testing the same application over and over again and replicating within each company over and over again the same functionality time and time again and replicating across industry. And the reality is all the effort and time and their talent that could be spent on magical algorithms and new ways to actually understand consumer behavior is actually spent in mundane tasks, not generating value. And our goal was simple, which was let's solve that. Let's actually go back to what does it mean to deliver business value through technology and create new things and really empower the talented group of engineers out there to focus their time and energy in areas that are differentiating for their company, something new and different. We might not even know what that's like yet.
And a question I've got to ask is, what's the story behind it all? Where did it all begin? Because I've got a feeling there must be a story here, that moment of inspiration, and what put you on this path?
Yeah, I guess, in the corporate world, I had 7 patents that I think 6 is still in production today. And each of those was an invention on trying to do something a little differently to add value faster. My first patent was something called Grand Central, which is still powering banks today. And the goal was to actually empower people to orchestrate events without code in many ways, drag and drop. But it's a simple idea. It's businesses have an unlimited list of demands. They actually know what they need. They understand it. They could describe it. It just never gets down into a requirements document well enough and understood enough to be created. And the reality is, I came to the conclusion businesses actually don't know what they need and describe it well enough for a technologist until it's in production. And then they basically say, hey, let's change it. And it's a really interesting thing to say, change it, when you spend 2 years building something and there's 10 million lines of code supporting it. And they say, let's just move this one thing. And then, it's a 9-month project with another few $1 million to spend. And, businesses actually have all these wishes that they would like to get done. Our goal is to basically say, what if you eliminated the barrier to change, which is code? And that's why Unqork is the first ever enterprise no-code platform. And when we say no code to us is really like a requirement. It says, if you allow anyone to override your functionality or code, you fouled, because you're not able to actually upgrade them in the future. They're stagnant. They're legacy today already.
And fast forward to present day, and you're now coming off the heels of an $80 million Series B round, and also on this massive stage of growth as we enter 2020. So can you share your mission and what excites you about this year ahead?
Yeah, and it's since our start in April 2017, we've been driving ourselves based on client demand. It's a very simple concept. Where is the client's needs? Help us, point us there. We'll solve it. We'll take the risk on. And with the investments we've done, from the seed round to the Series A that Goldman Sachs led, to the Series B that CapitalG led, with BlackRock participating and our current investors, we basically are seeing the client demand driving us so fast that where we originally thought we would be solving maybe one pain point in insurance, we're now solving the pain points across financial services, including insurance, including all aspects of insurance, including banks, capital markets, asset managers. And we now have 2 to 3 public sector customers live, with one healthcare hospital actually working with us. And all of that and all those requirements are driven off the exact same core platform that we started the company with the insurance companies. And it was a very different approach, Neil. First off, we said, let's actually concentrate on revenue from clients instead of funding. And not just concentrate on that, which is unusual, but let's actually only get paid revenue when the client gets value from us. Take the risk, which is, again, highly unusual. And those 2 drivers actually help push us in a way where we focused our strategy and effort on building something entirely unique and different from everyone else out there. And that platform that we built enabled us to respond to client demands faster, no code, no more need to code, but at the same time, as you said, solve the highest complex regulatory problems that for years has been given as an excuse as to why code needed to be there, why every architect or engineer said, oh, we're going to have to code that because we're so different than everyone else, and that software doesn't do what we need, or customize the software. And so from that point of view, it's a very different direction we took from the beginning until how we got here. Haven't changed, haven't pivoted. It's just the platform's capabilities and our team's capabilities keep extending us in new industries and verticals that we hadn't seen before.
And I genuinely love this unique and different approach that you've taken here. And there is a lot of excitement in the industry at the moment, especially I think because we're at the beginning of this new decade of opportunities and starting to question the art of the possible and think bigger. But how do you see the future of enterprise software?
Yeah, so to me, we're able to do today 95% of what an enterprise does in Unqork. If they have 10,000 developers or 50,000 developers, if they're spending $10 million or $500 million, it doesn't matter to us. We're actually able to confidently do whatever they're doing today on Unqork in a fraction of the time. So the go-to-market strategy is incredible. So we've had one Unqork creator, as we call them, and when he joined us, no technology background, just business. And in 2 weeks, he basically, learned the system. And in 3 days, he built the equivalent of a 2-year, 200 developer system, what we've seen. So 1 to 90,000 is not a bad ratio, 1 to 30,000, I should say, which is, we would say he's 100 times more productive than an engineer from that point of view. And the whole goal is simple. When, there's a lot of buzz out there now of low code, no code. It's not new. I was the CIO declining every vendor software out there, even the ones today promising that they do this. The reality is, number one, is a CEO of that company able to actually use the software in the demo meetings? So we have a rule: the most senior person has to do the demo in the meetings, no matter who that is. Wow. And so is the CEO able to actually use the software and show the business how easy it is to use? Just recently, that resulted in a chief operating officer come visiting us and basically learned how to use it with his team himself, which is incredible of a big company. And number two, when you think about that, is the software actually generating code? And what I mean by that is we don't even generate code. We're a brand new technology company, a brand new way to actually think of technology. And when we say we don't generate code, we're not generating legacy. Because, a lot of these solutions that have been promised for years that I had seen as a CIO, all they do is generate more code faster. Yeah. And all that means is more headache, more support, more patching, more worry about where it's being hosted. Where do we actually secure it? How do we secure it? Just because it's actually generating the code faster doesn't buy you anything, because your support costs and maintenance costs continue to go up and increase, is what we see. And, is that software even allowing you to inject script into the software? And Neil, this is probably, to me, the biggest differentiator is we got here because we've been trusted by the industry to solve the biggest problems at the biggest companies. What we really achieved is the first ever crowdsourced testing and crowdsourced functionality for the first time ever. So if you were a bank and you needed a new feature, when I built it for you, all the other companies, including a healthcare company, just got it. And immediately they got it. So every client is on their same version of software. And when that bank does a cybersecurity ethical hack vulnerability assessment test, you benefited. Your software was just tested as well without you doing anything. And it was the promise of software as a service, which has never been achieved till now.
Wow, it's fantastic. It really is. And I know you said that there's a lot of hype around no code at the moment, and it is actually nothing new. But do you think no code is poised to disrupt the software development space even more so in the next decade?
So I think it's going to play a bigger part as the business's level of frustration with their internal teams and delivery actually is more visible to everyone. So businesses have demand. Recently, we had even a board member of a very large company was the one that brought us in and reached out. And that board member saw that, they weren't functioning as good as they can. Could we help them? And how do we empower them to do more? So I think what I would love to think that Unqork did best of all was it makes everyone think about their investments in technology and saying, are we getting the most from that dollar? So statistically, you could take a $10 million investment and open a restaurant in New York City with a 1 in 10 chance of succeeding. And it'd be a better investment than spending $10 million in your enterprise software in the company. And that's a really bad place we're in right now, which we are absolutely driving the change. And we'd love people to think of almost like a mark to market on investment. How is your investment dollars going? Is your teams compensated based on achieving value, or are they compensated based on the two most ridiculous metrics, on time or on budget, which mean nothing?
And a question I've got to ask, of course, is how does it all work? And by that, I mean, for just to enable business leaders and techies alike understand exactly the kind of difference that you're making. Can you walk me through the process of how Unqork works?
Yeah, and Neil, if I put you in the seat of our client, the immediate thing we want to do with a new client is to say, get to the point of skepticism that you don't believe us. Yeah. And that's our point in the meeting is within 5 minutes to have the CEO, the board members say, too good to be true, don't believe you. And we would then simply say, okay, give us a problem to solve. Forget about slides. We have no slides. So Neil, describe any business problem to me in a second. I'll give you how then behind the scenes it might work. Anything you could imagine that you've recently filled out either online or paper or anything like that.
Well, if there's a CEO listening, what about scaling a business? Is that something we could talk about?
Sure. So when you think about scaling, it's going to be a lot of what they're doing today is still operational impact behind the scenes. So let's take a bank, and it could be a bank in UK. A lot of what they're doing there is still solving problems, whether it's KYC, which is know your customer, or the anti-money laundering checks. A lot of it is still using operations and manual people to do everything from the checks to the paper to the keying in. And we would look at that and say, let's automate that. Think through, what does it mean to actually do a know your customer for a new account opening up? It's, well, give me some information on the customer. Let me go external and actually look up to see if they're on the OFAC terrorist checklist. It's a requirement every bank globally has to do, is to check a list to say, hey, is this legal entity actually found in a terrorist list where we can't do business? And that check is done manually most of the time. So in Unqork, we looked at that and said, okay, what do we need to know? We need to know something like, what's the business name? So it's a field, and you would see it as a text field you could type in. We then actually made it a little smarter and said, you know what, as you're typing in that business name, let's go out to a legal entity search and go try to find the LEI ID of the business, the actual legal entity information, like a social equivalent of a business. And once we find that, let's actually take the name and go out to the TradeGov website and go bring back all the terrorist information on this business automatically and score it. And all of that becomes a single drag and drop component that you could bring into your screen. But different than every other company out there, we actually then say, that's great, but every company is unique. Every bank is unique. Every way they think through know your customer is unique. So you could go ahead and start customizing that in Unqork and put your own unique rules, your own user experience, your own designs, your own functionality. And it's just drag and drop, point and click. And what you're pointing and dragging and moving around is standard components that you could create your own functionality with that doesn't generate code anymore, but does everything you need for a mobile device or a laptop or a computer. So from that point of view, it's replacing everything you know today about enterprise software. And what's really crazy about that whole aspect is it doesn't just change the way you create software, it changes how you run the software. So the concept of IT service management really goes away in our world because we become the enterprise. We are hosting, we're securing, we're doing all the data transformations. We're able to be your system of record, every aspect of it. So the entire way they're running the enterprise software group actually disappears in many ways.
And one of the things I've learned from interviewing people on this daily tech podcast is, although I speak to people from multiple industries, everyone's going through the exact same challenges. So I've got to ask, do you have any use cases that you can share with everyone listening just to help them picture like a before and end result? And straight away, something that comes to my mind would be digital transformation, because I think that's something that everybody's going through at the moment.
Yeah, and a lot of people, the exact digital transformation strategies that we see shaping up in companies, a lot of that you have to step back and say digital really means listening. It means understanding signals, behaviors, customers, accessing them where they are. So to us, if we think about a sample use case, I'm going to describe a very high level use case, Neil, and I'll describe it as this. So tell me a little bit about who you are as a customer online. It's a form, and you could tell me your name, your address. Tell me a little bit about your financial history. So your salary, your income, your business, give me your credit score give me your social, and I'll do a credit check lookup. And at this point, what I've actually described at a high level is no different and the same form needed for opening a bank account, to applying for a mortgage or a loan, to applying for a annuity or life insurance, or even applying for a credit insurance, auto insurance, home insurance. It's actually the exact same thing as when you're walking into a hospital and registering as a new patient. So that same use case plays itself out where today there's tens of thousands of software vendors promising they do that one thing really well. They do that one niche really well, a patient registration in a hospital, or they do that account opening in a bank really well. Actually, when we step back and see it, that use case I described is the same across every industry, anything you could imagine. Why would we ever think we need different software? Yeah. Our goal is to be the only software in each company left standing. It's a pretty bold goal, and it's something we actually see playing out very well. From that point of view, it's a whole new way to create software. That use case of tell me who you are, I could then extend it to tell me what you're trying to do. You're trying to apply for a loan. Great. How much do you need? What's the appraised value of the house? Let me go look up the house. Let me check the address. You're opening a bank account. Let me actually get some information on the balances and transfers and it's all the exact same use cases all the way through servicing. So it wouldn't be an amazing place to be in the future, Neil, when you move and change your address, every system automatically changes it wherever they had you before.
Whoa,
And that's what we're empowering. Or, congrats, you have a new, your daughter's born in the hospital. Would you like us to add your daughter automatically to the policies as a beneficiary? And it's all seamless, automatic, never think about anything again. That's the revolution Unqork is driving. That's the digital transformation that's needed in the world in each business.
And do you receive much feedback? Do you get to hear any feedback stories from your clients? Or is there anything that you could possibly share with us today?
Yeah, so we live on client feedback. That is our internal metric, because it's actually really interesting. When your revenue is attached to client value, then everyone in the company and every direction you look at is trying to help the client in any way they can. And that's a very different direction as opposed to tying revenue to what I would call license sell. That end of year pitch, let me try to sell more. There's a mad rush, which is what companies typically do. As a CIO, that's what I would see. So specifically, when you think about achieving value and revenue from that point of view, and it's based on value, everything we do is based on how we help the customer achieve it. And the feedback they give us is what we live on. So at our holiday party, we had hundreds of clients show up, which is incredible. People flew in from all over. But I had one CEO of a broker-dealer come up to me and say, look, we're live using your software as a broker-dealer. I got to tell you a story. He goes, recently I was walking down the street, and when I was walking down the street, I had my Unqork hoodie on. And here's a client wearing our Unqork swag, which I love. And he goes, and someone stopped me. And they asked me, they go, do you work at Unqork? That's an incredible company. And he goes, no, I'm a client, and they are an incredible company. Like, they were in production. It's amazing what they did for us in just a few months that would have taken years. And that's what we live on. We had, you could imagine the resistance you see when you tell the enterprise technologists or architects that we could do what they're coding today without code. There is a lot of threat to their job security if they're not a good engineer. That's what we basically see a correlation to. If you're a good engineer, you realize we just empowered you to build the next algorithm to make your business profitable. But if you're not, you kind of view it as a threat. From that point of view, we will tell the actual customers that go ahead and give us the toughest problem you can. So we had a team of engineers in our office recently, and we told them in the meeting, what's the toughest thing you had to code in the past 5 years? Whatever that is, using Java, using .NET, whatever you're using, doesn't matter. What's the toughest thing you actually had to write code to solve? And they helped show it to us and document it. And we literally, in 2 days, had them build it in Unqork without code. 100% functionality, 100% of what they need. So from that point of view, it's, seeing their feedback as engineers, and they said, oh God, look, I could actually do more now. This is an accelerator to me. That's incredible. And if you're a business, that's frustrated with lack of technology or doesn't have the spend to get things done, then you see us as an empowerment to basically do all that without the need to actually have engineers.
Wow, it's a fantastic story. It really is. And for people listening that would like to find out more information, read more about those case studies and find you online, can you point them in the direction of your website, and also how they can contact your team if they're left with any questions?
Sure. So our website is unqork.com, unqork.com. For me, it's very simple. Find me on LinkedIn. I love using LinkedIn as a tool. I've been using it since its inception. And I try to respond as best as I can and try to share as much going on personally through LinkedIn as we can. And on our website also, if you have any questions, there's definitely a contact us or see demo. And, just welcome to the new revolution of software is what I would like to say. It's going to be an amazing, amazing world as we get to empower engineers to do more with what their skills have and stop talking about a shortage of engineers that we currently experience. There's not. But thank you, Neil. It's awesome. Awesome being here with you.
No, thank you. And one of the things I absolutely love about our conversation today, because as a former IT guy, I've seen so many different business departments going tech first and then looking for the problem, is on meeting a CEO, you immediately say, forget about the technology, tell me about a problem, and then you solve it with tech. But the tech itself then becomes invisible or in a language that everyone can understand. And I just think that's so forward thinking. Like you said, an incredibly unique and different approach, and inspiring at the same time. So thanks so much for coming on and sharing that with me today.
No, thank you, Neil. And it's amazing because my kids in the background, I see my kids actually playing, I think it's Roblox right now, Minecraft, but they don't think about the technology. They're building new worlds. Like it's amazing to see how my three kids interact with technology. And that's what we need to make enterprises function like, is you could create anything. Technology is no longer the barrier or the excuse or the bureaucracy. It's actually the empowerment to get done what you need, which is what we love. And again, thank you so much. And it's been great talking to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. What a great story. And I absolutely love the fact that Unqork is coming off the heels of an $80 million Series B round. It's on this massive stage for growth entering 2020. And it sounds like they have quite a year ahead too. So obviously, I wish Gary and his team the best. And Gary, if you are listening to this playback of the podcast interview we've recorded together, you've officially made it on my list of guests that I want to sit down with and enjoy a drink and hopefully meet in person. So a big thank you to Gary for taking the time to chat with me about the future of enterprise software and also explaining how Nocode is poised to disrupt the software development space. But what about you listening? We covered a lot of ground today. So if you're sat there thinking, that's all great, Neil, it's all cool, but why didn't you ask this? Or why didn't you say that? Or if you've got something to share or just got a question for me, my door is always open to each and every one of you. So please, if you do want me for anything, if you want to work with me, you can pop by my website, techblogwriter.co.uk, if you need help with your business blogs in the new year or launching your own podcast. Or equally, if you just want to message me, email techblogwriter@outlook.com, and you can get me on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn at Neil C. Hughes. So there you have it. You've got no excuse for not contacting your friendly daily podcast host. If I'm going to be talking in your ear every single day, why not pop me an email? Let's get to know each other better in 2022. But that's it from me. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.